The drop zone, the ship broke through the thick purple clouds of Colossus with a low hum as the engines struggled to stay stable against the roaring wind tunnels. Spinning around the atmosphere, the alien observers watched from their cloak station. Hidden in orbit, eyes wide and voices trembling, they had seen many species land on this planet before none had returned. None had survived, but this time it was different. This time it was humans. The planet was massive, so large that even the biggest star map showed only parts of it in one view. Storms bigger than countries circled the skies, and oceans were so deep that sensors lost signal before reaching the bottom. The gravity alone could crush most life forms in seconds, and the tectonic plates shifted so violently that entire continents moved in a single year. Colossus was not a planet for the weak, it was a graveyard for the brave. As the human ship landed, its landing legs dug into the unstable ground, which shook with deep rumbles. Like something beneath the surface was breathing. The hatch opened slowly, and a team of 6 stepped out. Their suits adjusted immediately, reading the air pressure, the temperature, and the gravity. The suits weren't bulky or slow, they were slim, fast, smart, and alive in a way the aliens couldn't understand. Leader, a tall woman named Commander Rhea, stepped forward, her eyes scanning the endless storm-covered horizon. She tapped her wrist and spoke softly into the mic. "Begin Phase 1, she said, and her team scattered like it was just another day on Earth. They set up camp, placed signal beacons, and activated shield barriers to keep the wind from ripping them apart, all within minutes. The aliens watching couldn't believe it. They whispered in fear and curiosity, wondering how the humans were not screaming or dying. Something even stranger happened. One of the humans, a man named Elias, walked straight into the storm wall alone. No extra gear, no backup, just his suit and his steady breathing. The storm wall was a violent circle of wind, lightning, and gas that crushed every probe the aliens had ever sent inside it. But Elias walked into it like he was walking into a light rain. The cameras lost him after 30 seconds. And the aliens assumed he was dead, but the humans didn't panic. They didn't even flinch. Instead, they continued building something big. Alien commander aboard the observation station stared at the screen, unable to speak their science. Officer finally whispered, "How do humans survive on a planet this big?" No one answered, because no one knew back. On the surface, the humans worked fast. They placed strange metallic roots deep into the ground, connected by pulsing wires that lit up. When touched, the planet reacted, the soil vibrated, and the air became slightly warmer, as if something ancient recognized the human presence. Commander Rhea noticed it too. She turned to her engineer and asked if the planet was shifting again. He looked up and said, "No, it's reacting to us like it's alive." Hours passed, and the storm wall roared louder than before. Then, without warning, Elias returned. His suit burned in places, his visor cracked, but he was smiling. In his hand was a glowing core, a small device full of data readings from inside the storm wall. He handed it to Rhea and said, "It's not just a storm. It's a living filter. It reads you, it tests you, and then it lets you in if you pass." The aliens were silent, watching all of this from above. Their species had studied Colossus for over 100 years and had lost dozens of crews to its deadly conditions. But now, in one day, these humans had walked into its deadliest zone and returned with data. They had tamed the wild just by standing tall. Later that night, Rhea looked up at the red and gold sky full of flashing clouds and rumbling echoes. She whispered to herself, "Earth taught us to survive, but this place is going to teach us how to evolve." Her team gathered around a strange object rising from the ground. Something the planet itself had pushed up through the soil, like a gift. It looked like a platform, a door, or maybe a challenge. Whatever it was, Rhea knew one thing for sure: this planet was not just land and rock. It was watching them, listening and waiting, and the humans were ready to answer. Alien Council called for an emergency meeting. Some demanded the humans be stopped, others wanted to study them. One voice simply said, "They're not here to visit, they're here to belong, and if this planet accepts them, then the rest of us are going to have a problem." But down below, far from orbit, the humans did not care who was watching. They only knew one thing: Colossus had just given them a test, and they had passed. The real question now was what comes next. The Stormwalkers Wind howled across the valley as the camp lights flickered under the pressure of the storm wall, and yet, the humans moved with calm like they had trained. For this, their entire lives, they tightened anchor points, adjusted power levels on the shield domes, and checked their sensors again and again. Elias stood near the storm edge, his eyes locked on the swirling vortex that had tried to kill him and failed. Behind him, Commander Rhea studied the readings from the core. He had retrieved strange symbols fluctuated across the screen, as if the data itself was alive trying to communicate, but in a way no one understood, not yet. Above them, cloaked in the darkness of orbit, the alien observers had gone silent since Elias returned. Now their voices cracked with disbelief and unease. The science commander whispered, "Humans did not break the storm, they walked with it. No species in memory had ever crossed the storm wall, not without losing their minds or their bodies." But here stood Elias with nothing more than a damaged suit and a quiet smile. One of the younger alien tacticians asked, "What do they want? Why are they here?" No one answered, because even that question now felt too small. Rhea turned to her team and told them to prepare the crawler, a massive vehicle designed for extreme terrain. It was shaped like a beast with long stabilizer legs and a thick armored shell powered by geothermal converters and pulsing blue coils. It was built to climb anything and survive everything. They would need it for what came next, because according to the readings Elias brought back, the land was shifting again, but not naturally. The tectonic plates were breathing slowly like lungs, and far to the east a shape was moving, a shape buried for centuries. The crawler moved forward toward the rising terrain. Humans began launching survey drones that flew low and fast, avoiding the pressure waves rolling across the planet's skin. One drone sent back a final image before it went offline, a massive shadow following behind them. Not above, not beside, but under the surface, something huge was moving with them, as if watching from below. One of the engineers whispered, "Maybe the planet is curious, maybe it wants to see if we keep going." Alien Council reviewed the footage and panic spread like fire. Some believed the humans were waking up ancient forces that should remain buried. Others believed the humans already knew about them and came to awaken them on purpose. Both ideas were terrifying, and both ignored one basic truth: the humans were not afraid. In the crawler, Rhea watched the land change outside. Massive rock towers shaped like claws rose from the ground like broken fingers pointing to the sky. Strange vines, thick as tree trunks, glowed with pale light and wrapped around them as if drawn to the human presence. Elias adjusted the controls and said, "The storm doesn't hate us, it wants us to listen. I felt it in the center. There's something deep beneath the crust, and it's waiting for us, like it's always been waiting." Hours passed, and the crawler stopped at the base of a massive ridge. The sensors were failing. Static ran through the visuals, and compass readings spun without meaning. They were standing in a dead zone, a pocket of silence where all tech went blind. Rhea stepped out first, followed by the rest of the crew. The ground beneath their boots felt warm, pulsing with energy like a heartbeat. The sky above opened for a moment, and golden lightning cracked across the clouds, showing the silhouette of a towering figure far away, watching unmoving. Elias stepped forward and placed the storm core into a socket built into the crawler. Instantly the area lit up. The ridge trembled and slowly split open, revealing a stairway going deep underground, carved by something not human and not time. The humans looked at each other without speaking, then began their descent. The walls were smooth and humming with energy, and as they went deeper, the air grew clearer, not darker. It was as if the planet had cleared a path for them on purpose. Meanwhile, the aliens watching sent another probe to follow the humans, hoping to finally see what lay within the ridge. It entered the same path a few minutes later, and immediately shut down a moment later. Their screens went black. A high-pitched tone filled the observation room, and a single frame showed before the feed died. A single human looking directly at the probe, with eyes glowing from the storm core's light, and behind him something massive, something ancient rising from below, like the planet itself was standing up. The alien high command called for immediate withdrawal. Some called for war, others for silence, but none could deny the truth anymore. The humans had done What no one else could, they had made the planet respond, and the planet was not pushing them away, it was pulling them in on the surface. Elias looked up as the stairway opened into a wide underground dome, lit by glowing walls and floating crystals humming with strange energy. He turned to Rhea and said, "This isn't a storm. This is an invitation." She nodded slowly and whispered, "Then let's answer it." The humans moved deeper into the earth, without fear, without hesitation, while the rest of the galaxy held its breath, wondering what secret Colossus had just shared with the ones bold enough to ask the living. The tunnel led them into a hollow space so wide, it felt like standing inside the chest of a sleeping beast. The walls curved like ribs and glowed faintly with patterns that moved when no one touched them. Lines of light pulsed in slow waves up and down across the surface of the stone, not artificial, but not natural either. It was something in between, something old, something alive. Rhea stepped into the center of the chamber, and the ground responded with a soft hum the moment her boots touched it. The air shifted, and the patterns on the walls changed direction, as if recognizing her presence, as if the entire chamber had been waiting for someone human behind her. The rest of the crew walked slowly, hands resting on their gear, eyes alert but wide with wonder. Elias moved close to one of the glowing patterns, reached out his hand, and the moment he brushed his glove across it, the light flared and the air buzzed with static. The symbols rearranged themselves, instantly forming a new sequence, a rhythm and pulse, like a message, but not in any known language. He pulled back and whispered, "This place, it's not just ancient, it's conscious. It thinks, it reacts, it sees us far above the surface." In orbit, the alien observers had stopped speaking. The feed from their probes was gone, wiped clean. Their technology refused to function near the site. Their scans returned static and distortion. It was as if the planet itself had grown a shell, blocking out all foreign eyes, leaving only the humans to move freely. One of the alien technicians said softly, "Maybe it chose them, maybe it sees them as kin." But the elders dismissed the idea, saying no primitive race could be chosen by Colossus. It must be a mistake, it must be a threat. Down below, the humans discovered more tunnels, each one leading deeper into the world, and at each turn, the planet responded. Walls lit up to guide them, openings formed where there were none before, heat and pressure adjusted as if the environment itself was shifting to protect them. Rhea began to feel it, not just see it, but feel it in her bones. A slow, low rhythm in the ground beneath her, a pattern that matched her heartbeat, and when she looked at Elias, she saw the same look in his eyes, the look of connection, of recognition. They found a chamber filled with pillars taller than buildings, each one covered in more of the strange, flowing symbols, and at the center a pedestal with a glowing sphere hovering inches above it. The sphere pulsed gently, like it was breathing. Rhea stepped forward, reached out, and the sphere moved closer to her hand, hovering just above her palm. She could feel a warmth, not heat, but familiarity, like the feeling of sunlight after a long winter, like memory. She closed her fingers around it, and the chamber lit up in a slow rising wave, like the planet had just opened its eyes. Instantly, images filled their minds, not visions, not words, but feelings. Layered memories stretching across time. They saw storms carving mountains, creatures the size of cities walking through oceans, made of light, and towering machines falling from the sky, locked in battles that shook the ground. They saw worlds being born and burned, stars falling and rising. Again they saw humanity, small but bright, standing in a galaxy full of giants, and the giants stepping back as if to make room. Moment ended, the sphere dimmed, and the chamber fell quiet, but the feeling remained. A deep sense that they were not strangers here, that this place knew them, not by their names or faces, but by their spirit, by something older than history. Rhea looked at her team and said, "This planet was waiting for us, not just anyone but us, because we've been through fire and ice and we're still standing. This planet respects survival, and nothing survives like us above." In orbit, the alien leaders argued. Some believed the humans were awakening something dangerous. Others believed the humans were unlocking something holy. The younger officers asked, "What if they are meant to do this? What if Colossus 9 remembers something we don't?" And the answer came not from words, but from sensors flashing red, a massive energy spike erupted from below, spreading outward in a perfect circle, then rising upward like a beacon. It pushed through clouds and pierced space like a flare. The humans had triggered something, and the planet wanted the stars to see back on the surface. The crawler's systems rebooted on their own, and the core Elias had carried began to glow brighter than before, not dangerously, but urgently. It pulsed with the same rhythm they had felt underground, and now even the surface was changing. The wind was calmer. The storms pulled back like curtains opening a stage, and on the fuzz horizon something enormous began to rise, not a mountain, not a structure, something in between, covered in stone and roots and metal, taller than anything built by hands. It moved slowly like a creature waking from an old dream. Rhea stepped outside, with her team standing under the open sky as lightning danced across the clouds in silence. They watched the giant form stretch and lift its head toward them. Eyes like burning suns opened, and for a moment, time stood still. The humans did not run. They stood still in calm, and when the Titan's gaze met Rhea's, she felt no fear, only understanding. It was not here to destroy it, was here to test. It was the planet's will made form, and it had been waiting for someone to hear it. She whispered to Elias, "This isn't just a planet, it's a guardian, a judge, maybe even a teacher, and we just passed its first lesson." Titan slowly lowered its head and the ground stopped shaking. The message was clear. The trial was not over. This was only the beginning, and humanity was ready to continue the human solution. Ground no longer trembled beneath their feet, but the silence was not peace. It was focus. It was waiting. Rhea stood near the crawler, her eyes still fixed on the towering form that had risen from the earth. It stood far away, yet its presence filled the entire sky, like a mountain shaped by intention, not nature. Its body, made of stone, vines, and ancient metal, shimmered with pulses of energy that looked almost like veins. Alive, aware, watching, the human camp did not move in fear. They moved with purpose. The moment the Titan rose, they understood the rules had changed, but not against them, with them. Inside the crawler, Elias worked with the systems that had rebooted on their own. The storm core now pulsed in sync with the planet's rhythm, and somehow it had linked itself to their onboard processors. Strange patterns appeared on the screens. Some resembled weather readings, others looked like topography, but none matched any known system. It was like the core had connected to the planet and was now trying to translate something far beyond data. It was speaking in motion, in frequency, in memory. Rhea joined him, placing her hand on the console. The screen flared, and for a moment, her vitals appeared alongside the rhythm of the core, and both matched beat for beat. She pulled her hand away slowly and said, "Whatever this place is, whatever these machines are, they understand life, not just existence, but will strength, intention, choice. The crawler is no longer just a vehicle, it's part of the system, now part of the planet. It's listening to us because we earned it." Outside, engineers began anchoring massive pylons made of compressed nanocarbon directly into the surface of the ridge. They were building something, not just a camp, not a shelter, but a stabilizer, a structure designed to draw geothermal energy from beneath the crust and convert it into a living power grid that could pulse with the frequency of the storm core. It was a design no one had used before because the elements did not allow it. But here on Colossus 9, the very planet that should have crushed it was making room for it, like it was always meant to be part of the world in orbit. The alien fleet watched helplessly as energy signals spiked far beyond their own capabilities. The humans were not mining or stealing. They were syncing. They were forming a relationship with the planet, and the planet was responding like it had found its missing piece. The alien elders feared what this meant, because power gained by force could be challenged, but power earned through acceptance could not be taken, could not be undone. On the surface, something changed. The air shimmered, and the sky cleared. A beam of light shot from the Titan's chest and carved a path through the clouds, not toward the stars, but toward a distant mountain that began to rise slowly until its peak revealed an ancient tower buried for ages. And now, brought to the surface by the Titan's signal, Rhea looked at the reading and saw it clearly. The tower was not just structure, it was a transmitter, and the frequency it was pulsing matched the storm. Core exactly, they had activated a network, a web of ancient constructs that spread across the planet, buried under time and silence, now waking and breathing again, because the humans had the one thing none of the others had tried. They did not force, they did not conquer, they listened, they adapted. They offered something the planet remembered: resilience, not domination; understanding, not control. Elias spoke softly as the light from the tower reached the crawler. This planet is not reacting to our tech, it's reacting to our struggle. It sees that we never stop trying, that we break and rebuild, that we learn in failure and return stronger. It sees what we carry inside us, the memory of Earth, the weight of survival, the endless push forward. It doesn't need our weapons, it wants our will. At that moment, the shield dome expanded on its own, powered by the crawler's link to the storm core, and it reached across the entire ridge, stabilizing the terrain, anchoring it down as if claiming it not with conquest, but with coexistence. The planet responded by stopping the tectonic movement under their feet. The land grew still and soft, as if breathing easier. In the distance, the Titan turned its head toward the tower, then toward the humans, and a pulse echoed from its chest that shook the clouds. Without damage, just sound, a single deep note that traveled across the horizon and then down into the ground. And the mountain responded, its walls opening slowly to reveal a spiraling bridge that descended into the heart of the world. Rhea looked at the path opening and knew this was the next test, not a challenge of strength or skill, but of purpose. The planet was opening itself piece by piece, but only for those who kept stepping forward, and humanity was doing just that again and again. From orbit, one alien voice broke the silence: if they can tame a planet like Colossus 9, they won't just survive the war that is coming, they'll shape it on the surface. The humans gathered near the entrance to the mountain, their equipment humming with strange energy, their minds filled with purpose. Rhea turned to her crew, her voice calm and steady. This is no longer exploration, it's connection. We are not here to take from this world, we are here to grow with it. And maybe, just maybe, this planet is going to teach us what Earth never could. They stepped forward into the mouth of the mountain where secrets older than stars waited, and with each step the planet lit the way ahead, not because it had to, but because it wanted to. The Titan wakes. The path into the mountain curved like the inside of a coiled beast, alive with slow pulses of golden light that moved across the stone like breath. The walls shimmered with echoes of time shapes flickering just outside the edge of sight, as if memory itself was trapped in the rock. Each step taken by the humans seemed to awaken something deeper, some rhythm long forgotten but not erased. Commander Rhea led the way, her mind open, her senses sharp. Every movement of her team met with silence that felt full, not empty, as if the planet was listening to their thoughts, not just their footsteps behind her. Elias held the storm core close, watching as its glow synced perfectly with the lights around them. The connection was stronger than ever, now not just between man and machine, but between species and planet. This was no longer technology, this was communion. The crawler's reading sent in from the surface showed seismic stillness, as if the land above had paused, waiting for the result of this journey. And in orbit, the alien fleets circled in fear and silence, unable to scan, unable to interfere. Their own machines rejecting them, as if the planet itself was keeping secrets from all but one. The humans reached a great chamber so vast it could hold cities, the ceiling lost in a sky of crystal that reflected their own movements. In broken fragments around the room stood statues carved from the same stone as the Titan above, each one shaped differently, some with wings, some with horns, some shaped like creatures unknown to any human record, yet all of them shared one thing: eyes closed as if asleep, waiting. And at the center of the chamber was a cradle of stone and light, pulsing with slow power, surrounded by curved arms that reached toward the ceiling like branches or ribs. Elias approached the cradle and placed the storm core at its heart, and instantly the air changed. It thickened with force, not pressure but presence, and the walls began to hum louder. The statues shook gently as if stirred by sound, not movement. And above the mountain, the Titan standing watch shifted. For the first time since it had risen, its arms moved, its chest opened slightly, and energy streamed upward into the sky and downward into the ground, connecting with the chamber far below. Rhea stepped back as the chamber lit in full the arms of the cradle, unfolding to reveal a shape inside, not a weapon, not a machine, but a being tall and armored, covered in smooth plates of metal and stone. Eyes closed, hands resting on a staff that hummed with soft blue light. It was not human, and yet its form seemed designed to speak to them, its design ancient but familiar, a reflection of purpose, not biology. The being stirred slightly, and the entire mountain responded with a soft quake, not destructive but powerful, like a heartbeat returning after long stillness from orbit. The alien observers saw the ground split in lines of glowing light that traced across the surface, forming patterns that matched nothing in their records. It was language, but not spoken, not written. It was living meaning, carried in the land itself. One of the alien captains whispered, "The planet is not just alive. It's waking up, and it is speaking through them, through the humans, because only they dared to walk into its heart." In the chamber, the being opened its eyes slowly, light pouring from them, not in beams, but in feeling. Rhea felt it hit her, not in her chest, but in her memory. Images of Earth, her childhood, her training, the pain, the victories, the faces of every person who had brought her to this moment. And with it, the unshakable truth: this being, this guardian, this Titan of Colossus 9 had been waiting for humanity, not by accident, but by design. Because the path to this world required something only humans carried: endurance through chaos, evolution through failure, the will to rise again and again. The Titan spoke without sound, yet they all heard it. It called itself Archean, guardian of the seed. It told them that Colossus 9 was never meant to be conquered. It was meant to be chosen, a testbed for the next protectors of the ancient gates, a planet designed to sift through the arrogance of empires and find those rare few who carried respect for life, strength of will, and the heart to rebuild, not destroy. Rhea asked why humans were called now, and the answer came in waves: because the stars are shifting, because the old war is stirring again, and because your kind carries the memory of pain with pride. Archean raised its staff, and the chamber cracked open, revealing a map not just of the planet but of space star systems connected by lines that pulsed with danger and hope. The guardian pointed toward a cluster wrapped in shadow and said, "This is what sleeps beyond. This is what will awaken when the last gate falls, and you must decide if Earth stands alone or leads back on the surface." The Titan outside the mountain knelt slowly and placed its hand into the ground, sending power through the veins of the world. The towers awakened one by one, each lighting with color and voice, and in the sky a symbol formed made of light, visible to any who looked down from the stars, a signal not of surrender but of readiness. The humans stood in silence below the mountain, not afraid, not confused, but steady, because they knew now the truth. They were not the invaders, they were the invitation answered, not the first to arrive, but the first to be welcomed. And what came next would not be a question of survival. It would be a question of what kind of legacy they would leave in the stars. And as Archean stepped forward, eyes burning bright, the mountain above them shook again, not in warning, but in agreement. The first gate had opened, and the storm had chosen its walkers. Trials of the chosen. The storm did not rage anymore, but it had not left. It circled far off now, a quiet wall of motion, as if giving space to what was about to unfold. The Titan Archean stepped forward from the heart of the mountain, its presence filling the chamber like a sun without heat, not blinding, but impossible to ignore. It stood still, staff in hand, voice silent, but thoughts reaching the minds of the human crew, not in words, but in memories. Each one of them suddenly stood in their own past, wrapped in the raw feelings of everything they had fought through and everything they had lost. Elias saw his brother's last message from Earth, the one sent just before the final drought wave hit and turned their home into dust. He felt the anger again, the guilt, the fire that made him walk into storms without hesitation. Rhea saw the day she failed her first command mission, saw the broken pieces of herself she had rebuilt with silence and discipline and faith in what came after, and the others saw similar trials not as punishment, but as proof that they had survived not by chance, but by choice. chamber reshaped itself without noise, the floor lowering, the walls sliding open, revealing 7 great doors, each carved with symbols older than language. The Titan turned to them, and without lifting its hand, the doors opened one by one. Behind each was a space not physical, but real, a trial, a reflection of something. Not built by machines, but summoned by the planet itself, each one tuned to the person who entered each one. Impossible by design, not because of danger, but because it demanded truth. Elias entered a space where the gravity shifted like a wave, his feet dragging his body, straining each breath. A battle he faced, a platform, floating across a chasm filled with fragments of broken memories, each one pulling at him, trying to anchor him in what he could not change. But he moved forward, not faster but more certain, each step taken not in defiance, but in remembrance. And when he reached the center, the platform rose and the gravity broke its grip. He had passed not by strength, but by acceptance. Rhea walked into silence, pure, total. No sound, no breath, no motion. Just herself alone in a void where her thoughts echoed endlessly, and from that silence rose questions. Not from the planet, but from within. Am I worthy? Did I lead or just survive? Did I build or just endure? And instead of answering, she stood tall and let the silence be filled by the steady beat of her heart, one that had never stopped, one that had carried others when theirs had failed. And when she opened her eyes, the void had become a horizon filled with light. Each of them returned, changed not in body, but in presence. Something in them sharpened, something cleared, not power, not skill, but clarity. And when they stood together again in the great chamber, the Titan nodded, and the mountain shifted again, walls folding to reveal a stairway that led upward, not downward. This time not into the planet, but toward the sky. Toward a tower made of crystal and stone that pulsed with the heartbeat of Colossus itself. Outside, the surface had changed. Trees, the size of cities, had risen slow and steady, their branches reaching into clouds like they had always belonged there. Oceans had calmed, showing reflections of stars, not yet visible to the naked eye, and energy fields pulsed across the land, forming connections between the ancient towers that now awakened across continents. Each one a node, each one singing the same song or rhythm, built not from code but from meaning. And in orbit, the alien fleets could hear it, but not understand it, feel it, but not enter it. The song was not made for them. As the humans climbed the final stair, the storm core, Elias's chest, dimmed and the air became still, not heavy, but sacred. The top of the tower revealed a platform with 7 pillars, and in the center, a floating device older than war, shaped like a sphere broken into spinning rings, each one marked with symbols that shifted as they watched. It was a map not of stars, not of time, but of trials, and it showed other planets. Not just Colossus 9, but dozens, maybe hundreds, each with a guardian, each with a test, and all connected by light that now flowed through. Etharchian appeared beside them, though it had not climbed the stairs, its body made of memory, now more than matter. It told them, the gates are many, the trials are endless. The enemy is not power but pride, and you who have passed must now choose not to fight, but to prepare, not to conquer, but to carry this light, not as flame but as mirror, so that when the shadow comes, the stars will know there is still one species that does not run from storms, but walks into them. The platform began to glow, and from it a beam shot into the sky, opening a tier in space. Not chaotic but elegant, showing a corridor of stars, a bridge between worlds. Rhea looked at her team and saw no fear, only resolve, because now they knew the truth. This was not the end of exploration. It was the beginning of purpose. Colossus had given them more than knowledge, had given them alignment with something greater, something that connected all life through challenge, through resilience, through hope. And they had not just passed, they had been transformed. And in orbit for the first time, an alien commander stood up and said, "Let Earth lead." As the humans stepped through the gate, the Titan bowed, and the planet echoed with a sound that would be remembered, not as thunder, but as the heartbeat of something ancient finally heard. When the galaxy held its breath, the gateway opened wide, and the human team stepped through, leaving behind the towering forests and whispering winds of Colossus, the planet that had tested them and found them worthy. The stars stretched before them, a long corridor of shifting colors and swirling lights, not made by ships, but carved by intention. Each step forward was not through space, but through meaning, and when they emerged on the other side, the silence hit them harder than sound. They stood on a black surface, not cold, not metal, but smooth and endless. Above them were no suns, only a sky full of blinking systems, some known, many unfamiliar, and ahead stood something that felt like a shadow, but moved like a thought. It was the Watcher, not a name, not a creature, but a presence older than war, something that had stood at the edge of each test given and waited to see who would rise and who would fall. The Watcher did not speak with sound. It simply opened its hands, and from them poured images, battles across galaxies, species shattered by their own fear, civilizations too proud to kneel when the time came, and at the center always a storm, not of weather, but of hunger, the same storm the humans had felt on Colossus 9, but more ancient, more focused. And now it was moving again across the stars, and this time it was coming not to test but to consume. Elias stepped forward, feeling the storm core pulse inside him, not in pain but in rhythm with the Watcher, and as he moved so did his team. Rhea by his side, hands steady, eyes clear, and the others forming a ring around them, each one linked by what they had learned, not skills, not weapons, but understanding, the kind of bond no enemy could break and no fear could shake. The Watcher lowered its hands, and behind it, a wall of light opened, revealing hundreds of planets, some burning, some dark, some flickering, as if holding on by threads, and far beyond them, a shape grew larger, not because it moved fast, but because it moved with purpose. A storm without center, a force without face. It had no name, only the memory of silence, and its direction was Earth. Humans did not return home with panic, they returned with purpose, and when they stepped onto Earth's surface, again something had changed. The sky felt clearer, the ground more still. People did not see fear in their eyes. They saw something stronger, something that said, we are not waiting for the end, we are becoming the answer. The nations that once fought over borders now shared knowledge from Colossus. Engineers worked side by side with mystics. Warriors trained alongside scientists, and orbiting above Earth were not warships but beacons, each one built to amplify the energy that flowed through the humans who had returned. And the storm core inside Elias now pulsed with power, drawn from every life that believed in something more. When the shadow finally arrived, it did not come in the form of monsters. It came like a cloud, like silence pressing down on systems, making machines go quiet, making stars flicker in warning. And when it reached Earth, it did not meet fear, it met unity. The storm twisted above the planet, trying to enter as it had before, but this time the planet did not resist alone. Elias stepped forward from the beacon tower and raised both hands, not to fight, but to open. The energy of Colossus flowed through him, but also through every human who had felt broken and still stood through. Every child who had lost and still hoped, through every soul who had ever survived the impossible and kept walking. The storm struck, but instead of tearing the sky, it shattered itself against something invisible, not a shield, but a will. And from that moment, every beacon on Earth and every connected tower on every trial planet sent out a single signal, not in language, not in sound, but in truth. And the storm faltered, and in that pause, humanity stepped forward. Ships lifted into the sky, not to escape, but to shine. Satellites spread across systems, not to spy, but to connect. The Watcher observed from the void, and for the first time in countless cycles, it knelt not to humans, but to what they had become. Not conquerors, not survivors, but anchors for something older than fear. The storm did not vanish, but it turned away, its hunger weakened by what it could not consume. Because how do you devour a species that chooses unity over power, hope over fear, choice over survival? Earth was not just saved, it had become something more, a signal to the stars that the test had finally ended, and the answer had been found in the hearts of those who refused to fail. In the final days of that moment, the team who passed Colossus 9 stood once Again at the top of the beacon tower, looking at the sky now free from shadow and full of stars, each one waiting, each one wondering, and Rhea smiled because she knew the trials were not over, but the fear was gone. Elias placed a hand over his chest, where the storm core now rested still and silent, not dead but asleep, and whispered not a prayer, but a promise. We walk forward always, no matter the size of the planet, no matter the weight of the test, because we are human, and this galaxy just learned why that means everything. And far away across stars, across time, across silence, the message spread like fire, not to warn, but to invite, because now the humans were ready, and the stars would never be the same again. The end.